Here is a claim that sounds impossible. New Jersey started Hollywood. Not helped start it, started it. You may have heard a different version, the one where New Jersey is the place the movies fled, running west to escape Thomas Edison's lawyers. That version is mostly wrong. The real story runs the other way, and it begins in West Orange, New Jersey, in a little tar paper shack. That shack was the very first movie studio on Earth, and it cost about $600. Thomas Edison built it in 1893 and called it the Black Maria, after the police wagon it looked like. It sat on a circular track. When the sun crossed the sky, workers just pushed the whole building around to follow it. But the man who actually built Edison's movie camera was an employee named William Dixon. Edison mostly signed the paperwork and took the credit. Then Edison learned Dixon had been secretly helping a rival build a better camera. Dixon dared Edison to choose, him or the manager who caught him red-handed. Edison chose the manager. So Dixon walked out, helped found a rival studio called Biograph, and Edison spent the next 10 years suing it. Edison's own first machine was a peep show. One person, one nickel, a few seconds of film, and it earned him $75,000 a year. And the machine that finally put movies on a big screen? Edison did not build that one either. A young inventor named Thomas Armit did. Armit's partners brought the projector to Edison to sell. He agreed, on one condition: it had to go out under the Edison name. So opening night, Armat worked the machine himself from behind a curtain, while the marquee out front read Edison's Vitascope. West Orange did not just invent the movies, it invented the movie business itself, the studio, the license, the lawsuit, and the drama. In 1908, Edison stopped suing his rivals and did something shrewder. He invited them all into a club. 9 companies pooled their patents into one, chartered right here in New Jersey. Inside the club, you made movies. Outside it, you were finished. History calls it the trust. And thanks to one deal with Kodak, an outsider could not buy so much as a roll of film. You did not own your projector either. You rented it, $5 a machine, across 40,000 machines nationwide. A brass plate on each one warned that prying it off ended your right to run it. The trust's weapon was never muscle, it was paper. Contracts, licenses, and lawsuits without end. But one small company slipped through their fingers, and it would go on to change everything. In the Edison archive at Rutgers, there is a footnote. The trust kept a file on one small company from Bayonne, New Jersey. Its offense? Selling movies without paying Edison a dime. To the trust, that was theft, so they started building a case against him. The company was Centaur. Its owner, David Horsley, had sold bicycles and run a pool hall before he ever touched a camera. Shut out of licensed film and licensed theaters, the independents needed somewhere new to build, and the whole business was already drifting toward one thing: the sun. So Horsley loaded his whole operation onto a train and shipped it as far west as the country went, to a sleepy, sun-baked village called Hollywood. Hollywood had banned liquor, gambling, even pool halls. So, on the corner of Sunset and Gower, a pool hall man opened its very first movie studio. He did not do it alone. His brother ran the lab, and a manager named Al Christie ran the floor. But a company from Bayonne had planted the flag. And Horsley was just one of them. All over the country, the trust had shut out little outfits like his, men like Carl Lamla and Mark Dintenfath. So the outcasts did the only thing they could. They pooled their tiny studios into one company, big enough, finally, to take on the trust. You have almost certainly seen its logo, a spinning globe. Carl Laemmle called his new giant Universal. And of the 6 little companies that built it, 3 came straight out of New Jersey: Horsley's Bayonne and Fort Lee, twice over. And Fort Lee was only getting started. Nearly every studio giant you can name got its start right there. For about 10 years, Fort Lee was the film capital of America, a dozen studios packed within a few short blocks. Universal, Fox, Goldwyn, names that still light up a marquee. Every one of them shot here in Fort Lee before it was anybody. And here is what almost nobody tells you about Fort Lee. 2 of its studios were run by women, back when women barely had the vote. One was guy-blache. Her studio here cost over $100,000, and she made real films while Edison was still filming a man sneezing. The other was Florence Lawrence, the first movie star the world ever knew by name, running a studio of her own right down the street. And one Fort Lee studio, Mark Dienfoss's Champion, was built to look like a plain barn, so the Trust's detectives could never find the cameras inside. Fort Lee had the stars, the studios, and the money. Then, in one brutal winter, it lost nearly all of it. Those Fort Lee studios all had glass roofs, not to hide from anyone, but to farm the sunlight. They were greenhouses. Glass works beautifully until January, and the winter of 1918 was the coldest that anyone could remember. To save coal for the World War, the government shut down non-essential industry across the entire eastern half of the country. The glass studios went cold and dark. Meanwhile, out in California, the sun kept shining every single day of the year. Remember the story we opened with? The filmmakers fleeing Edison's lawyers? That is not really why the movies left. They left for the sunlight. And you can prove it, because the Trust's own studios had already gone west too. In fact, the very first film shot in Hollywood belonged to the Trust. Biograph, Edison's old enemy, got there a full year before Horsley did. And the Trust itself was never beaten by the rebels at all. In the end, it took the government to shut it down. For 100 years, New Jersey had almost nothing to show for any of it. The studios came down, one by one. In 2013, a bulldozer flattened a shed near Fort Lee, reportedly America's oldest surviving studio. Nobody came. The old Universal lot is just a street sign now. It reads Universal Studio Way. That sign is the entire studio. And then, slowly, the movies began to come home. Not to the memory of New Jersey, to its actual ground. In 2025, Bayonne broke ground on the biggest film studio in the whole state, right in David Horsley's own hometown. They named it 1888 for the year the movie camera was born. 23 sound stages, rising on a dead refinery down by the water. Down the shore, Netflix is raising a dozen more stages on an old army base. In 2024, New Jersey shot $800 million of film in a single year. A pool hall man from Bayonne planted the flag in Hollywood. 100 years later, his hometown is building the next one. New Jersey never really lost Hollywood. It was always the story.